This hurricane, by the way, it's going to be a big deal for Florida. DeSantis made an announcement this morning that he has been speaking with Biden. So Biden has been in communication with DeSantis. So this isn't a partisan thing. DeSantis is saying, hey, Biden has traditionally spoken to me when we have hurricanes. All good there. Harris hasn't never been involved in this. Ever. For the 3 or 4 years that she's been in office, she's never even called me, let alone been involved in a hurricane preparation or recovery in Florida. And now all of a sudden, in the last month when she's being elected, she's claiming that she cares about Florida and wants to get involved.
You can either go one of two ways. If it's a really good leader, they can dominate and use this as a way to win.
I think that's where people are saying, like, we can't vote for this lady. We can't have her in office. She's not making sense, but she's also not telling us what she's going to do.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Adventure Capitalist Podcast. My name is Austin Bronner, and I'm here with my co-host, Cody Shirk. Cody, you got your mouth guard in? You're about to get slammed by a hurricane.
Yeah, I got the helmet on. Got a good surf in, though, just a little bit ago.
Yeah.
The waves and weather is beautiful. It's truly the calm before the storm right now. It's absolutely beautiful out. The temperatures kind of drop. There's no wind. But I think by tomorrow night, Florida is going to be getting slammed. So we'll see how that goes.
So what do you actually do? I never lived in Florida. I've experienced a typhoon before, but not a hurricane. They're pretty much the same thing. But what do you actually do to prepare in Florida? Like, what are you doing to get prepped?
If you're a Floridian, you're getting the beer, you're getting the cake from Costco, you're getting ready for a hurricane party, and you're ready to go. If you're a transplant from the Northeast coming down to Florida, you're running around with your head cut off, getting gas for your car. You're buying all the groceries from Publix. You're putting up your hurricane shutters. You're going nuts. I'm obviously joking a little bit about that, but I'd say most Floridians are kind of jaded to their hurricane prep. I am on the east coast of Florida, though. To be fair, it's significantly different on the opposite coast and the west coast. They're going to get it, and they're going to get it bad, mostly because of the storm surge. And people don't realize that storm surge is what really causes the damage, and there's nothing you can do about that. You just got to cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Yeah, the water rises up, and you know that you just like you said, you can't stop it. Right?
No.
There's nothing you could do.
You can't stop it. And, where I'm at, that's the other thing about Florida. People don't realize that the majority of new construction in Florida throughout the state is rated at this insane building code level where it can withstand literally 250, 300 mile an hour winds. So a lot of the damage that you see when you watch the news is sometimes goes through neighborhoods that have never been wiped out or have not been affected by a hurricane for decades. And so I don't want to say it's a cleansing process because that's a pretty brutal way to look at it, but a lot of the newer neighborhoods are required to build at higher ground, raise the foundations, the way that the house is actually built with concrete block, strapped roofs, all of that make them much more resistant to hurricanes.
Well, good luck. Good luck to everyone. It's going to be interesting as it unfolds here. You see some crazy stuff on Twitter of just how big it is. But let's dive in. So I want to start off today with a little market update because things have been moving. Crypto's up, gold's up, and then this morning, China is down. Give us kind of a primer. What's happening? So as our resident gold bug, what's happening with gold right now?
So gold's actually down a little bit this week, but relative terms, if you look at the chart, it's like a perfect staircase going up for the past, almost a year now. And we're around $2,600, $2,700 an ounce. Yeah, that is an indication of general fear within the markets. And gold is an international asset, meaning when you see gold prices going up, it's not just the U.S. freaking out. It's not just China or Russia or Europe. It's everybody saying, I see risks. I want to get into an asset that is going to preserve my wealth. And that's exactly what's happening with gold right now. Same time that's going on, China just did the stimulus package, which we talked about last week. The markets ripped higher, but then they've kind of cratered this week. So there's this severe volatility in the Asian markets. And I would say, generally speaking, that's with traders trying to snip off these huge gains and then selling off before they get trapped in something, because people know fundamentally there's still this major problem.
Still a lot of risk.
Tons of risk.
Yeah.
And if you can get profits in the short term, that's what people are going after. But no matter how much a government stimulates right now, I guess to a certain point, most investors are still see fundamental problems at the foundation of financial right now.
Yeah. The headlines are, the Hang Seng dropped 9%, but it was up, I think, 30% over the previous week. So still up 20%.
Right. But we just don't, I mean, again, if we were in Asia, speaking directly with Asian investors, they're going to interpret risks differently than we are in the West. But generally speaking, these volatile markets, which by the way, we're seeing in U.S. markets as well. I mean, the past couple of months in tech stocks, we've seen wild swings. This just goes to show that there's traders trying to snip off these profits. And there's also a lot of fear in the foundation of the markets right now.
I feel like it's very interesting right now. You've got these kind of two things going on. You've got, like you said, gold continuing to rally. And then you've also got the everything goes up, absolute melt up theory that a lot of people are holding in the crypto markets, right? And this crypto markets, and even in the general like equities market, there's this idea that things are going to move and continue to go up higher and higher and higher. A lot of this comes back on the crypto markets to this idea of like Uptober, right? And October being Bitcoin's traditional rallying point. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, historically, October's been very bullish. You've got right now, if you go on Twitter and you're looking at crypto Twitter, it's just nonstop memes of people being like, get ready to make money, get ready, get ready, get ready. What are your thoughts on this cycle theory of Bitcoin? Is it still relevant? Is it dead?
So bigger picture, October has been a great month for the crypto markets, especially in the time frame we're in right now. So 6 months after the Bitcoin halving, which is right about now, all the other halvings have been about 6 months until crypto ripped afterwards. So we've got that 6 month time frame combined with Uptober, combined with the stimulus that we see central banks starting to push into the system, combined with on and on, on and on. So it's very like, wow, we're going to see these huge gains in crypto. But the investor part of me is like, when a market has a consensus about one thing, a lot of times it goes the opposite way. So I would say of all the Octobers where crypto's ripped, this may be one of them where we see a lot more, maybe less than it's happened in the past, but who knows? I
think to your point, it's paired with gold. If you go back, gold wasn't hitting all-time highs, and there wasn't that much fear going on. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think that I am, because if you look at gold prices through the last cycles, gold has been low, and there hasn't been the same level of fear in the market, like so many geopolitical things going on. Again, could be totally wrong, and this might just absolutely rip, and we might see Bitcoin at 100K. Like to your point, it feels like there is this kind of consensus happening right now in crypto Twitter that is, it's going to rip, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
So here's my prediction, and this is one of those things I hate doing because you can look back and be like, oh, I was wrong. I think the problem with crypto right now, and by the way, I'm a gold bug, but I'm also a huge crypto fan, and I'm very much a fan of everything going on in crypto, especially Bitcoin. The reality is crypto price action has been highly correlated to the NASDAQ and liquidity from general markets. So if the NASDAQ does crater or world markets do decline, there's a strong argument that crypto will follow that trend. The problem we have right now, or I guess the unknown, is will crypto markets decouple from this correlation to the NASDAQ and general liquidity? And will it start to correlate more with gold? And will investors see crypto more as a safe haven? I personally think that will start to happen. I think it already has a little bit. An example of this was last week when we had the attack from Iran into Israel. A lot of markets tanked immediately. There's some oil volatility. Crypto didn't move very much. In fact, it was like surprisingly steady through that instability. So I think you have some people over the past decade who have traded crypto in correlation to markets and how much liquidity they have. But you have a new form of investor who's watching what BlackRock is saying about their crypto ETFs, and they're realizing that crypto is an asset similar to gold. So this new wave of crypto investors perhaps is treating crypto like it should be treated, which is uncorrelated to central bank activity. So I think that's going to happen more and more. And if that does happen more and more, that's very bullish for crypto.
It's interesting. Sui's still ripping. It's still moving since we talked about it last week. I think it was up like 15, 20%. So that's exciting.
Another bullish part for SUI, which you're really supposed to say SUI, not like
SUI?
SUI. I'm not correcting you because I say SUI also, but like the OG is just like SUI. Anyway, it is, they have a USDC coin that was wrapped. I don't want to get into the technicalities of it. Basically, Circle just partnered with us to release their own USDC coin. So there's a native USDC coin on SUI right now. And that was huge for Solana when that happened with USDC. There's a lot more liquidity on the chain, a lot more activity on the chain. And that's what's happening right now for SUI. So I'm still super bullish on it. I think there's a lot more to run on that crypto.
One other thing I read this week was that UAE removed all taxes on cryptocurrency transactions. Previously you were getting a value added tax of around 5% when you were transacting, all gone now. So, I mean, they're just rolling out the red carpet for anybody to move there to do business. No property taxes, no crypto taxes, no income taxes. Pretty incredible when you think about, for the first time, how easy it is for people to move and to vote with their feet. And we're just seeing governments taking these incredibly aggressive measures to start attracting the right people, that in their mind, the right people to come to their country. So very interesting stuff. And if you're a younger person, right, don't have a family, even if you do have a family, we have some friends with a family who are moving to Dubai in a couple of weeks. It's interesting to see these governments starting to play games to try to attract people in different ways, and they know who their avatar is, who they want to bring in.
Yeah, and the U.S. and the West needs to catch up. We're going to be left behind. We're already in a position that's very vulnerable as it pertains to taxes specifically, but also with crypto and other financial assets. When I say the West is way too Orwellian on its civilians, and when it comes to charging them for existing in this Western empire. And Trump made an interesting announcement a couple of weeks ago. No one really caught on to this, but he said he would do away with the international taxes for U.S. Citizens. So that means if you're living outside of the U.S., currently right now, the U.S. is the only country in the world other than Eritrea that charges its foreign citizens, so people living in foreign countries, the same tax. So let's say you live in America, or you're an American, but you're living in wherever, Australia. The money you're making, you still have to pay taxes to the U.S. government. There is an exclusion called FEIE, Foreign Earned Income Exclusion. It's about $120,000 a person, and double that if you're married. But if you're a big investor and you're living outside the U.S., you're still paying taxes to the U.S. The U.S. government still levies taxes over you. So Trump proposed that we should do away with that. And if they did that, if he does that, if that goes through, if he gets elected, I had a lot of my friends who are European citizens who have been considering coming to the U.S. They would say, "Oh, I'd get my U.S. citizenship in a second. That would be so much more attractive for me." So that's one sign of the West moving towards where the bigger trend is going with Dubai and these other tax havens. Shouldn't even say tax havens. How about more friendly countries?
Yeah, competitive nations.
Yeah, competitive. Exactly. That's a better way to put it. And we need to do that. The West needs to do that to be competitive with the world.
It's very interesting. Let's stay on the topic of metals, because one, you've been talking a lot about platinum, and on your YouTube channel, we talked a little bit about this podcast. Costco is now selling platinum bars. So you can go to Costco currently, and they were selling gold. Now they're selling platinum bars. So you can basically buy them for, I think it's $1,089.99, which is a slight markup from the value of $1,000. The value of platinum is up 15% from 2023. So interesting here to see this kind of playing out. Why do you think they're doing this?
I can go deep on this. The reason why Costco originally started selling gold bars is because Costco has somewhat of an internal policy that they like to put these Easter eggs throughout the store to make the shopping experience in Costco enjoyable. So like you're going to get your whatever bag of cereal and milk and eggs and like whatever, you've got to feed your family of 20. And then all of a sudden you go down an aisle and you see this like weird product, like, whoa, that looks fun. And traditionally that's how they've like made extra money. It's like this random doodad that you don't need at all.
They're literally optimizing it for you.
Yeah, I mean, but they're selling like random stuff, and that's how they've done well. But this new Easter egg is gold, so yeah, it's optimized for me. So I'm going through Costco.
He's picking up eggs and gold.
Yeah, exactly. So they put these gold bars in. I think they launched it in June of 2023, and it went crazy. They've sold so much gold. I know in one quarter they sold 52,000 ounces, which was more than $100 million. The most recent quarters they haven't reported yet, but I just was looking at their earnings call for Costco, and they said just from their online sales, gold sales have been over 1% of those total sales from online sales, and that isn't even a product they've traditionally sold, which is wild. And I just read an article today. I don't know how true this is, but a lot of Costco's, or the physical Costco's where you go into a shop, are sold out of gold now. You can't get the gold. So the point is, the gold selling, which was supposed to be this Easter egg that Costco is launching, obviously they knew that sentiment was changing within the public as well, has done so well that they have been surprised. And let's also acknowledge the US consumer and world consumers. Most people aren't super dumb when it comes to monetary policy. Like, people understand when their fiat dollars, the US dollars or whatever currency you have, is losing value. People understand that better than anybody, because when you go shop at a store month to month and it buys you less and less, you're seeing inflation right in front of you. So there's a couple of quotes in these articles of people covering the Costco gold selling story, and the shoppers are just saying, "Hey, I don't view this as a purchase. I don't view this as if I'm buying gold. I'm just transferring my money from one asset to another, and I feel more confident than gold will hold my wealth better than the paper money I have right now." And this is just a regular shopper, and this isn't some economist. Yeah. So it just goes to show the general public knows what's going on, and most people are not stupid when it comes to this monetary policy that's going on globally.
Yeah, it's interesting to see at the core, right? There's, in the same way that Bitcoin, there's a saying like it's not your keys, it's not your coins. It's similar in the sense with gold, especially when you start thinking about people. If you get way down the rabbit hole about people who are really in the prepper stages, it's like if you don't hold on to the gold and you're buying an ETF or you're buying it through Bullion Vault or something else, it's like, do you really own your gold when things break down? Do you really have it? And that's why I think this Costco move of allowing people to go buy it and take it and put it in their safe, it's a great move.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's exactly the same as not your keys, not your crypto. I mean, not exactly, but it's the same concept mentally, which is if I'm holding this gold, I feel comfortable with it. No one can take it from my hands unless you're ripping it out of my hands. And that's the same concept with holding the keys to your crypto. So to dive into platinum really quickly, we talked about this, I think, last episode. The price of platinum compared to gold right now is at an all-time extreme on the low side, meaning that historically, gold and platinum price has traded in trend in pairs. So basically, it's very similar. But over the past decade, it's kind of decoupled. And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's because platinum isn't as much of a industrial metal, which, by the way, is BS. It is used just as much, if not more, than it has been in the past. But right now, if platinum went back to equilibrium with gold, it would have to almost triple in price. So gold's around $2,700 an ounce. Platinum's about $1,000. Platinum's typically higher than gold. It's a more scarce metal when you're mining for it. So platinum should be over $3,000 an ounce if we look at the historical trend. It's currently at $1,000 an ounce. I personally called it the best risk-reward investment of 2024. It's right now in platinum. There's not much risk in going into it. I don't know how much lower it can go, but not much. Could it go higher? Could it triple in price? Absolutely. I don't know when. Maybe a couple of years, but it looks like a very interesting trade right now.
When you can buy ETF, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the other ways?
PPLT EF, PPLT. I think it has a 0.6% management fee. So basically means you're paying 0.5% per year to own this. And honestly, that's probably the best way to go.
Super
liquid. Plus you're not dealing with storing them. Other than what we were just talking about, you wanting to hold something, go buy the platinum from Costco. Honestly, I mean, Costco. So the downside of buying physical metals, gold, silver, et cetera, is you have the transaction fees. Unless you've done it, you don't realize how expensive it is. So if you're buying gold for $2,700 an ounce, if you go buy a coin, it's actually going to be like $300,000 for the coin, for a 1 ounce coin, because the dealer charges you on their markup, but also all these other fees.
Well, even what Costco is doing, they're charging, I think, $90 for 1,000.
For sure, but Costco is actually cheaper than a lot of coin dealers, and that's why they've done so well. Because even the coin dealers are going, shit, I'll just go buy gold from Costco right now. So if you're looking at platinum, again, PPLT is the physical ETF, meaning the ETF holds physical platinum in a vault somewhere. But if you
Yep.
don't trust the financial system, you don't trust that whole route, go to Costco. This is a plug for Costco, I guess. Go buy platinum from Costco.
And buy Costco stock.
Yeah, right.
Let's transition a little bit to kind of geopolitics and what's happening in the stands. So there was a diplomatic summit, the C5+1. It's been held every year since 2015. It's between the foreign ministers of the 5 Central Asian countries of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, with the U.S. Secretary of State. And that's to discuss and work on some common issues of concern to improve and strengthen the U.S. relationship with the 5 Central Asian states. C5+1 just happened.
Yeah, this is interesting. Or go ahead. You had more to say.
Well, so what happened? Again, it happens every single year, right? But this year's a little bit different than some of the previous years. And why don't you dive into what happened and why does it matter for people listening?
Yeah, and what I was about to say is that this area of the world, I feel like, is the most foreign out of any part of the world. Like when I was growing up in the U.S., you would look on a map and you could barely pronounce, your whatever in 4th, 5th grade.
The Soviet Union.
Oh, true, but they had areas, right, of the stands.
Yeah.
You knew these different areas. And I think in general, people have no idea what's going on over there, even today. So I think this part of the world, thinking that the U.S. is over there trying to make relationships with these countries, is bizarre. Like, what are we doing over there? So what you said, the C5+1, which stands for Central Asia, the C, which is 5. The 5 stands +1, which is the U.S. Notably, there's 2 stands left out, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Obvious reasons why those are left out. They're not really the best on the best terms of the U.S. right now, or have been historically. So the 5 stands that you listed, the U.S. has been going in there trying to establish stronger diplomatic ties and also trying to inject business activity from the West and the U.S. and also trying to extract business activity, specifically resources such as uranium from Kazakhstan or gold from Uzbekistan. And then there's a bunch of other industries that all the stands have that the U.S. has been trying to strengthen. But the much bigger picture here is that the U.S. and the West is trying to pull away the stands from Russia and China, which have historically over thousands of years had a relatively close trading relationship. And the U.S. doesn't want Russia to reabsorb these stands as the larger Soviet empire, which it historically has been a part of. So this is a much larger geopolitical strategy that the U.S. has, is trying to pull it away from our current adversaries, which is Russia and China.
It's interesting because it's the opposite of what China's doing in Latin America. China's in Latin America trying to pull Latin American countries away from America, much to the U.S.'s chagrin. And then we're over there trying to infiltrate and work into these countries that are massively resource rich. Like you said, they're very, very foreign and different from the US, but they're all places that have tons of resources, lots of land. In a country like Uzbekistan, they're a fast growing economy with a lot of young people and a bright future. And you can see kind of these larger geopolitical games going on. And the reason I said that it's not necessarily a normal year is because we've got multiple wars going on in the Middle East, in Ukraine. And I've been to Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan and that whole area, it's very interesting because when you're there, like the northern parts of the country are effectively Russian. I was in Azerbaijan, which is not one of the stands, but the northern part of Azerbaijan is effectively Russian. It's right next to Dagestan. There's a whole level of cultural influence and connection. It's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out. But it's back to our kind of theme of just what is the U.S. doing? Where are they putting their attention? Because where they put their attention, things generally change, and you can kind of see where the future is going.
Yeah, so I've got 3 things to keep an eye on for investors and one specific opportunity. The first one is Kazakhstan, which if you're a uranium investor like I am, you would know Kazakhstan produces about 40% of the world's uranium. And we are generally, when I say we, the West is generally in good graces with Kazakhstan in regards to trading uranium. But, big but, is that's on the line right now. And that's on the line because of the Russian influence to ideally prevent that trade from Russia's point of view. Russia it is actually still selling the U.S. uranium, which is a whole nother topic. I could dive into uranium, but the point is that the U.S. needs uranium for its nuclear reactors, especially since we're trying to build more nuclear reactors. And that is a very strategic resource the U.S. needs. So if you're an investor, you should know about Kazakhstan exporting uranium. There's a huge opportunity there to make a lot of money, but also a little bit of risk because you don't know what's going to happen with the trade relations there. Okay, second opportunity or just to know about Kyrgyzstan. There is a lot of Chinese influence in there right now. In fact, it looks like right now, if you had to bet out of all those 5 stands, that country is actually leaning the most towards China currently. And that's not to say that they're fully integrated with what China is doing, but China is aggressively doing projects in Kyrgyzstan right now. And I would say
which is all Belt and Road Initiative.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So on the surface, it's just like, oh, they're just building infrastructure and they're doing trade. But deeper, it's like, they might be pulling more towards their sphere of influence. And then the third one, which is most interesting because it just happened, Uzbekistan has the largest gold mine in the world. And there's a company called NMMC. It's Navoy Metals and Metallurgical Mining Company or something. Navoy just for short. They're going to go public in the U.S. next year. So that has been probably one of the benefits or wins for the U.S. doing this C5+1 in this area. They're trying to get some of these companies to, and by the way, it's currently state-owned in Uzbekistan, this company Navoy, and they want to privatize it and make it go public on the U.S. market. And the reason why Uzbekistan wants to do that is because they see the benefits of partnering with the West, but also there's a huge premium in Western markets for public companies. So there's a huge cash out opportunity for a lot of these Uzbekistan politicians, probably, unfortunately. But that company is a huge gold producer. They also produce uranium. They also produce natural gas, all kinds of resources. So that company, keep an eye on. It should be IPOing in 2025, or at least that's the schedule right now. And that would be a perfect example of why or how the U.S. is specifically working with these stands to get them to partner more with the West and the U.S.
It's been interesting doing a little bit of doing some work down in Guyana and going down and meeting with, let's say, politicians in Guyana, then also going to the embassy and meeting with Americans who are on the ground trying to facilitate business relationships. American embassy and the Americans that are working there, they're very, very, very good at following up, making things happen, trying to make sure that American investors, people doing business down there, have success. It's one of the things that I've been actually most impressed with spending time down in Guyana. It's how on the ball the Americans are at trying to facilitate and grow investing and make things just easier down there. You know, he was like, hey, well, I can make some calls, and if you need planes, yada, 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 like we can get things done. And goes back to something we've talked about on a theme in this podcast, that Americans are really good at doing business. And whether it's international or domestic, there's few places that facilitate business like Americans do.
Yeah. And I would say if you're an American, or really if you're anyone, but especially if you're an American and you're going into a foreign country, give the U.S. Embassy a call. It seems like an intimidating process. Like they're not going to answer you back, but that is literally their job. The U.S. Embassy's job is to facilitate U.S. citizens and other parties' transactions of business in that country that you're going to.
Yeah, when we say it's their job, there's literally a person there. There's a person there who it is literally their job, and that's all they do.
Yeah, and so I mean, we've met with the embassy, like you just said, had a great experience. I've done it before in other countries, and you should use that. So if you're a foreign investor going into another country, like call the embassy. The worst thing that can happen is they don't get back to you, but you'd be surprised that's what they're there for. So use it.
Totally. Well, let's move it back to domestic a little bit, because I'm going to talk a little bit about election update. We're three weeks away. Interesting thing came out this week. So obviously things are moving so fast in the election, the U.S. election. There's massive ramifications. One of the big things that happened this last week, just a couple of days ago, is Polymarket, which is the largest online political betting site. You can bet on things outside of politics, but it's kind of the place people look for when they think about what are the gamblers doing, where are the gamblers putting their money on the election. Overnight, Trump took an 8-point lead. So this is the largest lead that he's had since really Harris entered the race. And it's very interesting to see this happening at the same time as you see the Democrats changing their strategy. So he takes an 8-point lead. The same time, Kamala is starting to hit every interview, bang to bang, bang, bang. 60 Minutes went on Call Her Daddy, which is this second largest podcast in the entire world, was on The View, and continues to start going on these on this interview circuit. So what's your take on this, Cody? Is this 8-point lead that comes to the poly market? Is this change actually real? Is this something that is reflecting actual sentiment, or is it just people that are Trump supporters placing bets and that are like trying to move and influence the market?
Quick note on Polymarket, if somebody doesn't know what it is, it's a betting platform. So I would say this is, people respect Polymarket not because it's the best, but it's probably the purest, meaning people are putting money on the line about who will win an election. There's all kinds of other bets that Polymarket hosts, but I want to make a note of that because other polls I think are pretty biased, meaning if you're the New York Times or Los Angeles Times or New York Post, every publication has a little bit of a spin or a certain leaning, and the people that they are surveying often are a lot of their readership or their agree with them. So it's almost like a self-reaffirming poll.
Well, and then also you have to look at the fact that who's actually picking up the phone and answering these questions. There's no chance I'm picking up a phone and answering a question from some pollster, right?
Yep.
So you're automatically filtering down to a certain people.
Yeah, and like
and you depending on where you're calling, right? You can almost figure out who's going to answer the phone call, and then
so people not working have nothing better to do except to sit on the phone and answer questions. So, who do I want voting and who do I want making decisions? I want people who are out working and using their time to better the world, not the people picking their butt at home.
Back to my question though, do you think this even matters, right? Is this because the argument is that Polymarket is like most polls are being used to influence sentiment. You take the thing about the polls is like, it's kind of like chicken or the egg. When you can use polls to influence decisions and influence people, let's say that the polls are saying someone's way ahead, or that they're saying, that your candidate is ahead. What that can do is that can push people to stay home because they feel like they don't have, it doesn't matter, right? That's especially in those states that are kind of decided. It can push people to not care and go out because it feels like their vote doesn't matter. My question with this poly market, and like there's obviously real money on the line, but is it actually, do you feel like it's actually representing what's happening? Or is it just people who are Trump voters? Because you can actually look at the people that are placing bets and see that some of these people, they have massive Trump shares, and they're also betting on him to win the popular vote, which is extremely unlikely. So are they just pushing money in to try to influence the poll to make it seem like their candidate's way ahead, to try to prevent people from going out there and voting?
I guess you want like a yes/no answer for me.
I'm just saying, what's your take? I mean, it's interesting that she's now going on interviews, right?
So do I think the polls are important? Yes, I do, for everything you just said, because it shifts public sentiment. It subliminally makes people think one thing or another and encourages people to vote or not vote. Perfect example, 2016, the polls said Hillary Clinton was set to win by a 90% margin over Donald Trump. What happened? We all know what happened. Trump won. Is that because Democrats didn't go out and vote and they were just like, oh, Hillary's going to win, and then Trump people won? Or was that because there was just mass propaganda and the truth wasn't being told? I don't know. I really don't. But I do know that the polls that are out today absolutely are part of a larger propaganda, public influence campaign by a variety of parties. I don't think there's one conservative.
By both sides. Both sides are trying to do it.
Totally. Yeah. Again, so I think that's why Polymarket is the most pure, and that's probably not the right word, but I guess the most innocent in the sense that people are just using money to make a bet. It was very strange that there's an 8-point change overnight for Harris, other than some of her interviews started to come out. And that's the second part of your question, which is, what do I think about Harris and her interviews? Like, go listen to them yourself. Go listen to the 60-minute interview. Like, they're horrible. I mean, this is not, a lot of people say, oh, they're doing great. Like, listen to the interview objectively and listen to her answers to some of these questions. It's just like, what? She's not answering them. She's dodging questions. And sometimes she's not even, I don't even think, realizing what the question actually is. Not to say that Trump's any better, because he goes around.
He also dodges questions.
Oh man, he's pretty good at being slippery on that. But I would say that Harris has so many key topics that she has not taken a stance on. She doesn't have certain plans for some of the tax code, for the way certain profits will be treated. She just hasn't even announced what she's going to do. So I think that's where people are saying, like, we can't vote for this lady. We can't have her in office. She's not making sense, but she's also not telling us what she's going to do.
I also think that there's a lot that's coming out from the hurricane, and in my opinion, like what could happen with Hurricane Milton, like they always talk about an October surprise. These hurricanes and the response to the hurricane is going to have an influence. One, North Carolina is a battleground state. It's very, very, very close, and the consensus that I'm seeing is that the response hasn't been very good. Right? There's a negative outlook on how FEMA and the federal government has been responding in North Carolina. You take that one step further with whatever happens with Milton, and it could get really gnarly if it's even worse and the response is worse. And it's one of those, honestly, it's a big trap when you are in office. Something like this happens, you're so close to an election, because everyone's going to be pissed off no matter what at the response. And how you can either go one of two ways. If it's a really good leader, they can dominate and use this as a way to win. But I don't think she's got the same chops as a really good leader to be able to seize this and turn this into an opportunity to be on the front lines and, show leadership when these natural disasters are smashing parts of our country. You already saw, because she released a statement saying that she was going to give like $230 million to Lebanon on Twitter. And there were thousands and thousands of responses being like, how tone deaf are you? You have people in North Carolina who are still stuck in their houses and they're getting $750, and you're announcing that you're going to give $230 million to Lebanon. I think it was the three things she talked about was like relief aid to make sure that they're taken care of, all the things that people need in North Carolina. So my prediction is this could go very poorly for her based on how this hurricane plays out.
Right. And she also needs to have a track record of doing certain things correctly. And I feel like we're attacking Harris right now, but on this specific topic, it's something that she's at the last minute flipped on in order to look better. And a good example was this morning, DeSantis is preparing for this Hurricane Milton. It's going to be this hurricane, by the way, we should probably dive into a little bit what's going to happen here, but it's going to be a big deal for Florida. There's going to be a generational change in a lot of the housing trends and on and on. DeSantis made an announcement this morning that he has been speaking with Biden. So Biden has been in communication with DeSantis, and DeSantis even said in the past he's been in communication with Biden. So this isn't a partisan thing. DeSantis is saying, hey, Biden has traditionally spoken to me when we have hurricanes. All good there. But he said Harris has never been involved in this. Ever. For the 3 or 4 years that she's been in office, she's never even called me, let alone been involved in a hurricane preparation or recovery in Florida. And now all of a sudden, in the last month when she's being elected, she's claiming that she cares about Florida and wants to get involved. And I think that's the track record I'm talking about, that people want to see her involvement in certain topics. And this is something that she just hasn't been involved in. So for her to all of a sudden insert herself in this, it just looks very it looks fake, and it looks very contrived, and it doesn't feel good for voters when they're looking at this.
And that's an uphill battle for her, because that's what she's fighting against is a general feeling of fake, of not knowing what she stands for, things being contrived. And I think that's also why she's going on these interviews right now and trying to get out there and make it happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be an absolute coin flip of an election. It's super interesting. And but we're kind of seeing in real time how people's strategies have been playing off each other. Initially it was J.D. Vance is not a great candidate, should never have picked him. Then he goes in and absolutely smokes Tim Walz in the debate. And now
he's very well spoken too, and very fair,
very well spoken,
not attacking, very like opposite of Trump
calmly,
in terms of being respectful.
Calmly, surgically dismantles his opponent there. And I think that it's interesting after that. I think the Democrats shifted full gear and they said, all right, let's wheel her out and see what she can do on all these shows and try to change sentiment about who she is.
Well, I think that's also a sign that they know they're in trouble. I mean, me personally, I will be very surprised if Harris wins. I think that you said it's more of a toss up. I think Trump's going to have it handily. And for all the reasons we just spoke about. But the bigger picture, which is people generally see what's going on. We've had massive inflation. We're entangled in multiple global crises right now. We are prioritizing the budgets of foreign nations over the support of our own citizens. We have a border crisis, and people see that's going on. They want to change that direction.
I mean, but I'll play devil's advocate because I'm here on the West Coast. You're in Florida, deep in a stronghold state. I'm in California right now, moving up to Oregon, and I think that on the flip side, there's so much general dislike for Trump.
Never
that I think
Trumpers.
that's what's going to keep it super, super close. And it's hard, especially in places. I was in Texas for a long time. When you're in places that have more of, let's just say, purple or red leaning, to understand how Trump has just broken some people's brains related to his general demeanor. And it's like it's still an anything but Trump sort of thing. There's somebody driving by with a Trump flag, and we watched multiple people just like get off their bikes and just give him a middle finger on the street.
Yeah, it's
so.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point too, because everyone's in their silo. Like whatever I see, I'm probably reinforcing my beliefs. But real quickly about the polls, I think the New York Times last month, or maybe a couple weeks ago, released a poll for the states showing which states were swing states, and it showed Florida as a swing state. And that's
but he's way ahead.
Right, but I'm just saying that they were showing this as, I don't know if that was their strategy to somehow play mind tricks with certain people. But yes, Florida is way ahead.
Well, I think it's traditionally been a battleground state and a swing state. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to like Pennsylvania and a few counties in Pennsylvania to decide the election, which is very interesting. And, Arizona and.
Yeah, I mean, Florida was the key state for Bush and Gore. That was the big debate back then. Florida's been a big issue. But really quickly, what you said about people being never Trumpers or having this TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, I definitely think that is real. And I agree with you there. I would just say I think there's a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of my friends in California who have never voted Republican, and they're not going to say it publicly because they don't want to offend the little circles that they're in. But it's similar to 2016 that when people go in the booth and they have that privacy to just vote for who they want to vote for, I think they're going to realize, you know what? I really don't like this guy, what he says, but he's a better choice for the direction of our nation.
We'll see. I think it's gonna play out. And it's 3 weeks. There's gonna be some wild stuff happening. I want to wrap it up with one interesting thing that I shared with you. We talked a lot about China is always an interesting topic. I want to read a story that I saw that China demands teachers surrender their passports in a shocking move to control travel and limit foreign influence. This is very, very interesting. So in a tightening grip on civil society, Chinese authorities have implemented a policy that requires teachers and other public sector employees to surrender their passports under the guise of personal travel abroad management. This is a measure of part of President Xi Jinping's broader effort to control who can travel internationally and for what purposes. Effectively, a lot of the inland teachers, mid and high level officials have now had to give in their passport, and now they have to apply through the Education Bureau to see if they want to travel abroad. They interviewed someone here, a teacher from Sichuan, who said that they could travel abroad, but the requests are really unlikely to be approved. Very interesting. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this is one of those cultural things. I mean, first of all, like terrifying from a Westerner, I'm free type perspective, but I think this is one of those cultural things that is very hard to understand from a Chinese perspective. And both you and I spent a lot of time in China, and I'm not claiming to be a China expert, but when you're on the ground there and you see how their culture operates and what priorities they have, it's just so different that it's hard to relate. So seeing this headline in the news that they're going to control passports and all that is, kind of like shocking from a Western perspective, but internally, a lot of their people are like, okay, well, this is better for the nation and the Chinese civilization. And I use air quotes on that because people always say, don't call China a country, call it a civilization. They do things together and make sacrifices for the better of the nation. And they may look at this policy as something that's in line with that. That said, for me personally, I think this is a perfect example of why China is doomed in the next couple of decades in terms of their their domestic policy having serious issues with how happy and successful and prosperous their social structure is. So bearish long term, don't really care short term.
Yeah. I think it's a continued just reminder of how important it is to diversify. You've got the two opposite spectrums. You've got China, and then you've got what we talked about, the UAE, where they're attracting people, trying to make it as competitive as possible, making it so that it's easy for business to go in and out. And then you've got the Chinese Communist Party, who, I mean, in this whole article, it breaks down how basically in some regions, teachers have been told explicitly to not have contact with certain groups that are undesirables, including the Falun Gong spiritual movement, which if you're in the US and you're driving around, and you've probably seen outside these cities, they have these acrobats. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You're driving around, you see the posters?
It's
that is
what's it called? We got to pull
Falun
that
Gong.
poster. Is it? I thought it's called something else.
Well,
Though.
it is the Falun Gong, but they call it something else, right, on the poster. And apparently they said that they want to limit teachers to one single overseas trip each year and only a period not exceeding 20 days. Yeah, it's very interesting to me. I think it's just a reminder of how quickly things can change in your country and why it's important to really prioritize freedom. And you always want to make sure that you take care of that before it's too late, right? Like you want to make sure that before your freedoms are taken away, that you're prioritizing diversification.
I got a devil's advocate thing on that, just to throw it out there. I'm very pro America. I'm a patriot, but if America doesn't want you to leave its borders, they'll be able to do that. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that.
I know that. I'm just saying, I think China is much more overt on how they share their policies, where like the U.S. is much better at hiding. If they want to stop somebody from traveling, they could absolutely do it. I think China's just a little bit more, public about their policies.
Yes, and we already know they can't stop people from coming in the country. Why would they stop you from being able to get out of the country? Yes, I'm sure if you want to go on a plane, you can already tell your retinas are being scanned 6 times between the time you enter an airport and the time you get on the plane. The reality is, if you have a second passport and you decide you want to drive down to the Texas border, you can get across.
That's true.
You can get across, you can get out. And if we really do have a secure border, at some point in the future, maybe it'll be more challenging. But I mean, even back when I used to live in California, Southern California in college, we could just drive straight through to Mexico. They wouldn't even stop you if you go in the middle of the night. They didn't even have anybody manning it.
When I was
just
a kid,
straight through.
We would drive back from Mexico. They wouldn't even check you that way either. You just go right back into the U.S. They'd be like, "Oh, you're American. Come on in. You look like you're gonna go.
Right.
Welcome back."
Awesome. Hey, good episode. Love to hear from you guys. Hopefully this is some stuff that you're interested in. Hit us up on Twitter at Abron, at Cody Shirk. Let us know what your thoughts are. We will see you on the next episode.
See ya.